And let's talk about his prior statements he made, because we know on June 10, 2015 is when he said Demekion Garlington gave him certain information and that Shannon Stillwell was one of the people responsible for killing Donovan Thomas. Demekion told him at the McDonald's. That's what Kenneth Copeland said on June 10, 2015. Well, we learned that Kenneth Copeland actually met with the police in 2015 4 times prior to that June 10, 2015 interview. We learned that he met with Investigator Thorpe on January 11th. Now, mind you, all these meetings, presumably, if it were true, Kenneth Copeland would have that knowledge of what Demekion Garlington said to him for all these meetings. January 11, 2015, he goes in to talk to Thorpe. Doesn't say anything about Demekion Garlington telling him that Shannon Stillwell is involved in Donovan Thomas's murder. Places himself at the Green Store, which is less than a minute away from the scene of the Donovan Thomas murder. And he's asked about, specifically by Detective Thorpe, if he's ever rented or driven an Infiniti. And what does Kenneth Copeland say? No, never. Denies it completely. That's on January 11th. That's the night going into the morning after of the Donovan Thomas homicide. And of course, we know that's a lie because Kenneth Copeland was in the Infiniti on the night of January 9th with Quindarius Zachary. So he lies right off the bat to Detective Thorpe. January 28th, he meets with Thorpe, Dennis, and Gaither. Again, never mentions this supposed statement by Demekion Garlington about Shannon Stillwell being involved. In fact, he's asked specifically who he thought killed Donovan Thomas. He mentions his friend Doc and goes back and forth about whether Doc could have done it or not. He shares a theory about Donovan Thomas running off with someone's drugs. He shares a theory about Kelvin Watts robbing people and Donovan Thomas being caught in that situation. And he's also asked on January 28th about a rumor that he stole Donovan Thomas's chain. And what's he say? Oh no, I didn't do that. Someone else apparently stole Donovan Thomas' chain and they brought it to me and I realized it was Donovan Thomas's stuff and I returned it. I don't have any problems with Donovan Thomas. Me and Donovan Thomas are cool. He also said that on the 11th. So then we go to February 20th, the third statement he gave. Again, never mentions anything about what Demekion Garlington supposedly told him. And Curry, Investigator Curry, asked him about the Donovan Thomas case. Doesn't know anything. And then on February 21st, with Gaither and Thorpe, he's again asked about the Donovan Thomas case. Never mentions, oh, Demekion Garlington at the McDonald's told me that Shannon Stillwell did it. Again, he's asked about Donovan Thomas's chain, and it's another lie. Oh, well, someone brought it to me. He sticks with that lie. Lie after lie after lie. Denying beef with Donovan Thomas, denying stealing Donovan Thomas's chain, denying ever being in an Infiniti. Those are the statements that Kenneth Copeland gave leading up to June 10, 2015. Could you put on page 33, Mr. Kokomo? So, this is a picture from June 10, 2015 that's in evidence. And it is misleading. It shows Mr. Copeland wearing street clothes, civilian clothes, not a blue jumpsuit. But let's not get confused, let's not get it twisted. On June 10, 2015, Kenneth Copeland, for the first time, was headed to jail for serious charges.
Gun charges.
That's what's different about this interview. He was headed to Rice Street He had a gun charge from the Dunbar Rec Center. Remember when he brought the stick into the rec center and left it on the bleachers?
Dummy.
He had just been arrested on that warrant from when he did that. And when they arrested him on the warrant, they came into his girlfriend Deshawn Quarterman's apartment. And what did they find? They find another gun, a stolen Smith & Wesson, in Deshawn's kitchen. And they find a stolen MacBook in Deshawn's apartment. And they find stolen IDs and stolen property in Deshawn's car. And so now we got 2 guns, stolen property. Oh, and then the police are saying, oh, this stolen property, it's linked to auto breakings that have happened in your neighborhood. So he's got guns, and he's got a federal agent in there as well, Agent Cunningham, who's talking about these cases going federal. He's got a lot going on. And promises are made. Well, let's talk about the threats first. And all these officers say, oh, I wouldn't threaten him. I wouldn't threaten him. I threaten no bodily harm on him. I'm going to tell you, Max Schardt said this here today. Y'all threaten to punch me in the face anytime. But don't threaten to put me in prison for 25 years, no parole. That's a real threat that gets my attention. You can punch me. But the state and the police act like statements that Agent Cunningham made, like, you're an armed criminal. We got you dead to rights. You're facing 15 plus 10. That's 25. No parole. You're not going to get out till you're 48. And that's not even including the conspiracies. You won't see your children till you're 48. That's a threat.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot more bigger threat than I'm going to punch you in the face or we're going to beat you until you confess. That's a threat. What else do they say? It's totally up to you if these charges go federal or not. You have to help yourself. I'm going to call the U.S. attorney and they're going to ask me, what did he do to help himself? You see what goes on here? This isn't an accident. This is the playbook. Get the liar, get him jammed up, threaten him, tell him he's not going to see his kids again until he's 48.
Mm-hmm.
And
then get him to
oh,
lie.
but maybe we can do something for you. You just got to give us what we want. And yes, that was enough to make self-admitted liar, self-admitted finesser, a person who fully admits that he would lie on anyone to get out of jail, to stay out of jail, to get out of trouble. That was enough to coax him to make up a story about Shannon Stillwell and others. And that was actually enough to put his plan in motion because he knew someone was going to have to back up his story. And that was enough to have him reach out to Demekion Garlington and try to get Demekion Garlington to go out and go on with the story. Which, of course, Mr. Copeland told us he's no longer friends with Mr. Garlington because Mr. Garlington would not go along with that story. Or he's upset with Mr. Garlington that Mr. Garlington would not go along with that story. Maybe you say,
Dr.
Max, we get it. Yeah. He's a liar. He was jammed up. But maybe this threat of prosecution was what was needed to bring out the truth. Maybe he was being truthful on June 10, 2015. Well, let's think about what else he said on June 10, 2015. Remember when they were talking about those auto breakings that they suspected him of? And said, you're going to have to answer these auto breakings. Why do you have all this property in these cars? We know you're involved. Remember what he said? Nah.
Oh.
That was Lil Mike and Quiz that did them. Remember the detectives? They looked at each other, Lil Mike and Quiz, Lil Mike and Quiz.
Woody is a genius, man.
But what did we learn in the cross-examination of Kenneth Copeland? Little Mike and Quez, not only did they not do the auto breakings that Kenneth Copeland claimed they did on June 10, 2015? Little Mike and Quez,
They don't
they
even
don't
exist.
exist. He made them up on the spot on June 10th of 2015. So my answer to you, if you think, oh, this pressure was needed to get Kenneth Copeland to finally be truthful, nope. He was lying. He made up people that didn't exist in this very statement that the state wants you to take as truthful.
Yeah, that
From
was
one of the
Miss
biggest liars
Hilton's
we've
witness.
ever seen in our lives. Mr. Kokomo, if you could play what's on page 35.
Man.
And what did Kenneth Copeland say on a call from the Fayette County Jail on December 21st, 2022, on a recorded call that Attorney Steele brought out?
First thing I did, I ain't got nothing to do with it. I lied on to it because, you know what I mean, I found out that he I can't say that, I can't say that on the phone, but, you know what I mean, it's some shit happened between me and him back then. And just so happened I got locked up the next day.
The halftime
You
video.
feel me?
Or the halftime track.
He admitted. He said, I lied on Thug. The very same interview, he was saying all sorts of things about Thug. He admitted he was lying. He was making stuff up to get himself out of trouble, to get out of his situation. And he got caught in a recorded line saying as much.
And he said it on the stand, Max. Multiple times.
Ladies and gentlemen, Detective Thorpe fell for the finesse.
Squirrel brain.
Kenneth Copeland said it was easy. Lieutenant Gaither fell for the finesse. The police report fell for the police department fell for the finesse. Kenneth Copeland got up on the stand and explained the finesse to you, to your faces. We know better than to fall for Kenneth Copeland's finesse. We know better than to just accept his words. Mr. Kokomo, if you could put on page 36. This is the other state's witness, the other witness that they chose to bring in front of you, Quindarius Zachary. And yes, he's wearing the jail blues, and he had every reason to lie to get himself out of trouble. First of all, what did Quindarius Zachary say at trial? He admitted that he lied on Shannon in two prior statements. One August 5th, 2015 to Lieutenant Gaither, and then one in a proffer session on March 3rd of 2017. And he also admitted on cross-examination that even those two statements, those two lies he told about Shannon Stillwell, were not even consistent with each other. But none of the police seemed to mind. None of the prosecutors seemed to mind. Why? Remember his lie? His lie was, oh, the night of the Donovan Thomas killing, Shannon Stillwell confessed to me at Jeffrey Williams' condo. And then he also went on to lie about Shannon Stillwell on this August 5th, 2015 statement, lied about Shannon Stillwell's involvement in really a bunch of other cases. Cases that Shannon Stillwell has never been charged with. He just lied on Shannon. And he admitted his motivation for lying on Shannon. He admitted that he knew, or he was under the belief, that when he talked to the police, when he talked to Lieutenant Gaither, first of all, he needed to get bond. He had been locked up for about 7 days His family had been calling Gaither. We heard about that. Begging her to go up and talk to him. What was the urgency? Well, we didn't get into details, but we learned that Mr. Zachary has a serious illness. A serious illness that he wasn't going to fare well at Rice Street under those conditions. So he needed to get out. So he has people calling Gaither, come see me, I want to talk to you. And then he also has the motivation of the April 28, 2015 case, which he was facing at this time. He told you, I was under the impression, and I didn't do the math, this may be right, this may be wrong, but this was his impression, that he was facing something like 185
Shout out to Les.
years. Yeah, that's pretty good motivation to lie. And then he was also concerned because he got caught with a gun on May 7th, 2015 that he knew was ballistically linked to other crimes. So that was a reason for him to lie. And finally, why Shannon? Because he wanted to get back at Demekion Garlington, because Demekion had told the police about the April 28, 2015 incident. And he figured blaming Shannon for things was a way to get back at Demekion, because at that time, Demekion and Shannon were close friends. So those were his motivations. Let's talk about the statements he gave. We heard about Investigator Gaither being called repeatedly to go down there and talk to him on August 5th, 2015. And she said, okay. Remember, he wanted to talk about other stuff. He didn't want to talk about his case. He wanted to immediately get to the point where he's telling lies on other people to get bond or get released, get consideration. And Gaither, to her credit, said, no, we got to talk about your case first. Let's talk about April 28, 2015. And what he said, I wasn't there. I wasn't there. The only reason I know about it is because Demekion Garlington told me the next day. So immediately, he's lying to the police, saying he wasn't there, which of course we know he was there. Lieutenant Gaither knows he was there. But what's his explanation? It's odd. It's interesting. It seems to be a recurring theme. I wasn't there, but, and where did he say was also? I was at home because I'm always sick, right? I was at home, I'm always sick, I wasn't there, and the only reason I know about this is because Demekion Garlington the next day confessed to me. Seeing a pattern?
Mm-hmm. Terrible
Everyone's
witness.
always confessing to Quindarius Zachary, according to Quindarius Zachary. Of course, that was a lie. Demekion Garlington had not confessed to him. That was made up. He made up a story about someone confessing to him. And in fact, he was there. Gaither called him on it. He about 2 or 3 times said, I swear I'm telling the truth. I swear, I swear, I swear. And finally he gave up the lie. And then he proceeded to move on to other cases and make up lies on Shannon. March 3rd, 2017 was the second statement set up by his lawyers. You got to understand what a proper session is, as it was a session for him to give as much information as he could about as many instances as he could, and the DAs were in the room. They can consider the information given, and then they can give any consideration that they deem appropriate to Quindarius Zachary for his assistance in providing information. Those were the 2 statements. But here's the thing. You know, it's not complicated to keep a story straight if it's the truth. But if you're making up lies, the context, the details tend to change. It's a little bit more difficult to keep everything straight. Mm-hmm. And I think about all of us. You know, I think about when I was a kid. I saw a space shuttle explode on TV when I was sitting in a classroom watching it take off. And I remember exactly where I was. I remember who was sitting next to me.
That's how I feel about 9/11.
I remember whose class it was. I remember what grade I was in.
Mm-hmm.
It's etched into my memory. I remember when my favorite football team first won their Super Bowl in my lifetime. I remember everything about that. I remember who the announcers were. I remember who won the MVP. I remember what room I was watching the game in. I remember who I was watching the game with. Mm-hmm. I remember when this country elected their first black president, our first black president. I remember who I was watching TV with that night, the emotions, what room I was in,
Me too.
what channel I was watching. I remember even silly things. I remember watching the Oscars and seeing a man run up on another man and slap him in the face while I was watching with my wife on our bed in our old house while she talked on the phone with her sister. I remember those details, those things that are etched into my mind. And I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, if a friend of mine came up to me in real life like this, if it really happened, if a friend of mine came up to me and said, Max, I have something to tell you. Earlier tonight, I murdered
It's easy to remember the truth.
one of the most powerful gang members in all of Atlanta. I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, that I would remember exactly where I was when he said it. I would know exactly what was going on, where we were, who else was there, and what exactly was said. Because that's the type of thing you wouldn't forget. That's the type of thing you wouldn't forget details of. But what do we know about Quindarius Zachary's renditions of this alleged confession by Shannon Stillwell? It changed. It changed from August 5th, 2015 to March 3rd of 2017. On August 5th, 2015, he claimed that Shannon Stillwell confessed, but just said, we caught Nut down bad.
Very true.
On August 5th, 2015, he said, we caught Nut down bad. And then, according to Mr. Zachary, on August 5th, 2015, Shannon Stillwell also named 3 other individuals in the car. That was his statement on August 5th, 2015. But then on March 3rd, 2017, he's asked about the same alleged confession. And it's, Shannon just told me he caught Nut down bad, and he didn't give me any other details at all. Didn't say anyone else who was in the car. What about the timing of the confession? On August 5th, 2015, Quindarius Zachary claims the confession occurred just as he and Muntunk pulled up to Jeffrey's condo. And Shannon was about to go to a girl's house, and we crossed paths, and he confessed to me. On March 3rd, 2017, what was the story? No, Shannon wasn't there when I arrived at the Sky House. Shannon didn't show up till later that night, till about 4 or 5 a.m. He was dropped off by some girls. I know because I let him into the condo. How do those details change about something that would stick in your mind if it were true? And the answer is because it's not true. Because it was a story that was made up by Quindarius Zachary, who was facing 185 years, who needed to get out of jail because he had a serious illness, who knew that the gun he had been arrested with was going to be linked to other crimes. And just like Kenneth Copeland, he was someone that was willing to lie to get himself out of trouble. And at that particular time, the state, the investigators, and everyone else had enough leverage on him to force him to make that decision to lie on someone else, to save himself. It's a sick game. It is a sick, sick game. So we got these two liars who were strategically interviewed at the very time they're most likely to lie. Wouldn't it be cool if we had some corroboration of what these two known liars claim?
I agree.
Phone records. The state has repeatedly claimed that there's some corroboration in these phone records, and I give Agent Bernie some credit. That was the FBI cast agent that charts, that talks about the phone records and plots them. He was very careful. He was very clear. This does not give exact locations. First of all, it's just devices, not people, but it doesn't give exact locations. It doesn't tell you where people were. It gives a general area. It tells you what cell phone may have been closest to the device when it was being used. And these cell phone towers have all different radiuses and all different signal strengths. So you just get a general idea. You got to be very careful about what you read into these cell phone records. That's what he said, the expert. And yes, he talked about different people calling different people that know each other calling different people on January 10, 2015. Shouldn't be that surprising. And yeah, he put Kenneth Copeland, as did ADA Sprinkle, Kenneth Copeland at the Green Store, in the general area of the Green Store around the time of the homicide. The Green Store that is what? A minute away from the barber shop?
Thank you, Ray.
What did the phone records corroborate again? That Kenneth Copeland was right there at the time of the murder? That people were generally going north and south on the highway? What did they say about Shannon Stillwell? Where did they say he was? Go look at those phone records. Did they provide any cell phone records for Shannon Stillwell? How about Diamante Kendrick? What is the power of those cell phone records again? What do they corroborate? Did they have Kenneth Copeland wear a wire? Remember, when he was so desperate to get out of jail, I'll wear a wire, I'll wear a wire. That would have been an idea. Prove what you're saying, Kenneth. Don't just, you're a liar. You're a known liar. Don't just tell us stuff. Prove it. Nope, they didn't put a wire on Kenneth. What about wiretapping phones? We know they know how to do that. Did they wiretap anyone's phone to corroborate anything Kenneth Copeland and Quindaria Zachary said? Nope. So then we get to surveillance video.
86.
And this is where this gets kind of ugly.
Asia.
Kenneth Copeland claims he was at the Green Store, not outside the barber shop at the time of the killing. And his phone records put him in that general area. How many times have myself or Attorney Steele asked about the Green Store? Detective Thorpe claims that he went to the Green Store to try to get surveillance, but he didn't think they had any. Really? Because I heard about my client being shot at, his head being shot at that very same Green Store, and I heard the officer responded and looked at the surveillance to determine who was shooting at my client. I've seen pictures of the Green Store. I see the cameras. They don't have surveillance. Okay, Detective Thorpe, so you tried to get surveillance. Do you have that in any of your reports? Any documentation of you going to the Green Store to try to get surveillance to corroborate the claims of Kenneth Copeland? Oh no, that's not in my report. Ask Gaither, Lieutenant Gaither, about the Green Store.
No.
Why would I go to the Green Store? That's not even relevant. Really? I beg to differ. She had no interest in corroborating Kenneth Copeland. So then we talk about the McDonald's surveillance. The McDonald's at Old Hateville and Cleveland Avenue, the very spot where Kenneth Copeland claims in his story that everyone met and that Demekion Garlington told him who killed Donovan Thomas. Well, we know the McDonald's has surveillance. That's been testified to by several officers.
Oh, that's terrible.
And we know we don't have the McDonald's surveillance for January 10th, 2015. So I ask, Attorney Steele asks, I ask, other attorneys ask. First we asked Gaither, did you ever try to get surveillance to McDonald's? And what did she say? Oh, we went like 2 or 3 months later, we went and we talked to a general manager and they weren't able to get into the cameras right then, but we took the card and we gave the card to Thorpe. That was her explanation of the efforts to get camera footage from the McDonald's. I said, okay, do you have that in a report that you drove down to the McDonald's and talked to? Who was the person you talked to? What was their title? What was their name? Where's the card? Oh, no, I don't have that in a report. Nope. Okay, so then we asked Thorpe, what did you do to get surveillance from the McDonald's to corroborate anything Kenneth Copeland said? And this is where it gets ugly. He said, I went a couple days later and I talked to the people and they said the footage had been erased. The 15-day or however many days the cycle is ended and all the footage was erased and it started all over again. That piqued our interest because everyone knows that's not the way surveillance cameras work. Everyone knows it's first in, first out on a rolling basis, meaning if it's a 15-day cycle, at the end of 15 days, everything isn't just erased, but it starts taping over the beginning parts again, so you always have 15 days memory. Everyone knows that you wouldn't go to the McDonald's 2 days after an incident and find out that the whole system had been erased, because that's not how surveillance systems work. And we asked every officer, it seemed, that came up here, you ever hear of a surveillance system working that way? Where it just all erases at one time, or does it roll first in, first out? Every one of them said they never heard of a surveillance system just erasing all at one time. Every single one of them. So, does that McDonald's on that corner of Old Hateville and Cleveland Avenue have a one-of-a-kind, a one-of-one surveillance system that they're operating?
Where's the
I don't
video?
think so.
Where is
But
it?
what does that mean? It means Detective Thorpe lied to us. He lied to
Shocker.
y'all. He didn't go to try to get that surveillance from the McDonald's. He didn't go 2 days later. What did we hear from D.A. Sprinkle? Remember that? And that's a straight shooter. D.A. Sprinkle. What did
He's a
D.A.
good one.
Sprinkle said when we asked him about it? Hey, did Detective Thorpe ever mention trying to go get the footage from the McDonald's? Did that ever come up? Because, we've been asking a lot about this McDonald's footage. What did D.A. Sprinkle say? Detective Thorpe never brought that
Shout
up
out to
to
Bam Bam
me.
Lynch.
And that seems like something he would have brought up. Detective Thorpe lied. Either that,
Straight
or
up.
he did go get the footage, and it doesn't back up Kenneth Copeland's claims, and it's in his his missing file somewhere, which he can't find to bring to court. I guess that's a
got a
possibility.
burrito.
But he lied.
Yep.
All right, so the elephant in the room. Who killed Donovan Thomas?
Moody.
It's not our burden to solve this case, first of all. The jury instructions are clear.
That's a good point.
It's not our job to solve cases, especially cases that happened 9 years ago. But to the extent that it factors into the question of reasonable doubt that Mr. Stillwell committed that crime. Let's just leave it like this.
Talking
I
about
know
Danny.
someone who has a closest associate named Trevante Turner. I know of someone who is arch enemies with a man named Kelvin Watts, who's the brother of Donovan Thomas. I know of someone who, with Trevante Turner, went and shot up Rich Homie Kwan's father's barber shop in 2014. I know of someone who stole Donovan Thomas's nut chain and wallet and cell phone out of his truck in late 2014, and when asked about it by the police, repeatedly lied about that situation, repeatedly pretended that him and Donovan Thomas were cool. I know someone who was jumped by Kelvin Watts in Club Crucial on January 6, 2015. I know someone who basically admitted on the stand, I'm listening, to shooting up the TIG studios at 675 Metropolitan Avenue on January 8th, 2015, 2 days before Donovan Thomas's death. A shooting which shot a hole in Rich Homie Kwan's windshield. And if you recall from the officer who responded to the scene, a shooting that very well may have occurred while Donovan Thomas was present. Remember, I asked that officer, were there people there in the studio at the time? Yes, there were. Who were they? I don't know. They wouldn't open the door. They wouldn't come and answer. And I know someone who was put on the proverbial plate by Donovan Thomas on January 8th, 2015. Mr. Kokomo, could you please play DS24F?
I got somebody, but I don't know his name. He was there. He everything. He called the night. Well, I forgot what day they got killed, but it was a Friday night. They had, no, it was a Thursday night. They had a barbecue. But the barbecue just about, it was blood. Everything blood. And the whole meeting was based upon me. They was all in there talking about
Protect the
this and
gate.
this, talking about this and this. So the nigga Mo was on the phone. So Mo told everybody, I need every last one of y'all, whoever 90s scraps here, whoever that was the nigga name, supposed to kill me. They gave all them guns. The same night, gave every last one gun. Said, treat me to a gas station and kill me. I forgot what else. But he called and he told me everything and he said, is this person a friend of yours?
That's good. The whole meeting was based on me. Gave all of them guns. They were instructed to trick me to the gas station. This wasn't some universal Donovan Thomas after everyone. This wasn't Donovan Thomas after YSL. It certainly wasn't Donovan Thomas after Shannon Stillwell. They were after Kenneth Copeland. I know somebody who had the opportunity. Not only does cell phone records put him right in the area, but we know the car was, we know the shooting, the murder was perpetrated using a certain Infiniti. An Infiniti that was rented for Kenneth Copeland by Jeffrey Williams. Because Kenneth Copeland needed a car. An Infiniti that Kenneth Copeland was in possession of the day before the Donovan Thomas shooting. An Infinity which was last known to be in the hands of Kenneth Copeland and Quindarius Zachary before, according to Kenneth Copeland, he handed it off to his good friend, closest associate, partner in shooting up Rich Homie Kwan's father's barbershop, Trevante Turner, also known as Threat. In conclusion, regarding count 2, ladies and gentlemen, there is an absolute lack of reliable evidence against Shannon Stillwell. He had no motive. His problems with all these people happened afterwards. Once APD falsely accused him, once the streets falsely accused him of committing this crime, that's when people started shooting at his head and shooting at cars he was riding in. He didn't have any problems with Donovan Thomas. There's no evidence of that. There's no forensics, no DNA, no cell phone records putting Shannon Stillwell at any scenes. He's not on the Texaco video. It's just 2 witnesses, both proven and admitted liars who changed their stories repeatedly on tape,
Said I did these crimes.
right in front of all of us. Both people who had every reason to lie when they gave their stories. 2 people that were chosen by the state to be the key witnesses in the case. But 2 witnesses, to their credit, who at least came in here and owned up to the fact that they were weak. They chose themselves. They chose to lie on others to save themselves, and at least they came in and told you that. Other than that, there's no corroboration at all.